Howdy. Today I'm going to be filming how to make a Pentagon bird feeder. This actually did originally start as a Pentagon planter, but when I posted it on Nextdoor, people said that would make a nice bird feeder, so I adapted, and here we are. Your materials, less than one cedar picket and 1/16 of a 2x4, which is your inner ring here. You should be able to get about 16 bird feeders out of a single 2x4 the way you cut it up. This is designed to just hang from a post, 3/4 inch hole in there. And now I'm going to build this thing for you. All right, so your first step is going to be to get a 2x4, and you want to rip it into 8 3/4 inch squares. All right, so once you have your piece ripped down to 3/4 of an inch, you're just going to turn it on its side, cut it in half, and that'll make you a 3/4 by 3/4 block. All right, this is what we're going to be making our inner pentagon out of. If you have any pieces that have, get this closer here, knots like this, do not use them in your piece. It will just cause weakness. Trust me, it's not worth it to think you're saving some wood. Just waste what you got to waste so you don't have those knots in there. All right, for the cedar, I'd like to tell you that there is a consistent setting for cutting these, but there's so much variation in your cedar pickets. Usually I start at about 4 15/16 and then whittle my way down as needed to make sure I get a good point on it. You want to set your table saw to a 36-degree angle, 10-sided, so 360 divided by 10 gives you 36. All right, I've got the saw set at 36 degrees, just a little bit higher than the piece of wood. And we're going to rip down both ends to 36 degrees and then see if we get good points. If we have any flat bits, then we're going to need to make it smaller and get rid of those. All right, hoping you can see this. You see this one came to a flat at the end and not a point, which is, there really is no set measurement because these boards are so inconsistent. So I'm just going to bring this in about another 1/16 of an inch, and I'm going to rip it again until we get that to a point. Hopefully you can see that, but we now have a good point. So we're just going to go the other way and take off the other side. All right, now we have good points at both sides. It's a bit chompy, partly due to my lack of skill and partly due to inconsistencies in the wood. All right, so now we want to get a measurement, and then we'll start making these pentagons. So basically just want to measure the inner, and we're looking at 4 5/8 for the width of our pentagons, or our pentagon pieces. When you do this, you want to basically measure on every board and not mass produce pentagons, because otherwise, if you go by your first board and you just start making a bunch of pentagons based upon that size, you'll end up with a bunch of pentagons that you can't use because the width of the board changed. Or basically they might work, they might not, but you're better off in the long run just do 10 cuts on your pentagon board for each one. All right, so we're going to set the miter saw to 36 degrees. Lock that in. And it's going to knock the end off of this piece here. All right, once we have the end of the piece knocked off, we're just going to measure 4 5/8 on the long side. And we're going to rip our master. And you do want to test your master on the board, make sure it is lining up nice. And that looks good. So we're going to rip a total of 10 of these. If you want, you can set up a little block here, or you can just do them one at a time, and always using your master as a template so you only mess up the single wrong one and not all of them. Alrighty, once you have cut all your pieces, you do want to re-verify the length. Make sure they are all the same length here, and that the long side does match the cut side of your cedar picket. Any mistake you made will be probably multiplied 5 times, so you do want to make sure you get it right. I did have one that was a little bit long, So basically I had to recut one really quick. I did make a little bit of a jig here just to assist in putting these pentagons together. I'm just laying one there, laying my second one here, and I'm nailing at this point. So let me get a little dab of glue. I'm not going to sing that annoying song that somebody else does every time they put a dab of glue on something. It was cool the first time, dude. Every video, it gets old. You know who I'm talking about. If you found me, you found him first. Yeah, and I'm just going to put that in there, tack a brad in, and keep rotating along. And our last piece will hit on both ends. Yeah, and there is one pentagon. And do the same thing again. And now we're going to rip this piece of cedar. I use 8.5-inch pieces, your choice, but the assembled item is about 8.5 inches tall, so I figured 8.5 for each piece of cedar is good. And you're going to rip 6, even though it only has 5 sides, because one will be part of your back. All right, so back over at the miter saw here. So we're going to set back to 0. And we're going to go 8.5 inches and then do the same thing we did on the last one. Is just basically use this piece as our template. We're going to cut 6 of them. The one tool that makes this assembly so much easier, I strongly recommend you get one, is one of these strap wrenches here. Got this one off Amazon. It was like 10-15 bucks, I forget. Not much. This one is what POWERTEC, but it don't really matter what the brand is. But basically it's a little ratchet strap that you can put around your stuff and keep it all together here. Let me just get that opened up like that and put that nearby. And we're going to stand up 5 of these. Make sure we got room on here. Drape this guy around it. Sorry, I don't have a ceiling cam. All I have is one cell phone to do all these videos on. All right. Once you get the strap around it, kind of get it in a sort of position. Get it down about centered. And we will ratchet this guy together. You can see with this ratchet strap, you can pick it up, you got your pentagon right there, and then we can just slap the inner pentagon right on in there. You might need to loosen a little bit or wiggle a bit to get everything right. Dry fit it first, just to make sure I'm not wasting all this wood by gluing in something that isn't going to tighten up nice. I'm going to show you what has been the nemesis of this project here. Got 4 good sides, big gap right there, which means either that board ended up being a bit thin or that piece of the pentagon ended up being a bit wide. Either way, it's a pain in the butt to fix. So I'm going to put you on pause. All right, so because I did not clamp those in, I ended up getting inconsistencies in the pieces I was using for my pentagon. So this time I'm doing it the right way. I have the correctly measured piece of wood in there so it doesn't even move. I have a block of wood and a C-clamp, keeping everything solid. So the next batch should be consistent. So I have two more decorative pentagons, and we're just going to move on here. All right, so after re-cutting that pentagon and putting it back together, we are a lot tighter. It's not perfect. As one of my customers mentioned, the birds probably don't care. And at this hour, I care a little bit less myself. So I'm going to make the other pentagon, and then we'll start tacking this thing together here. All right, now we're back to where we were about 15 minutes ago. And so we've test fitted the pentagon. It fits in there fairly nice. So it's going to slide it out here and glue all the way around the exterior. If your pentagon has an ugly side, put that on the inside so nobody sees it. And it's going to go around here. A little bead of glue. And slap that on in there. Should have a little bit of stretch with your strap there. Any glue that comes up, I'm just going to wipe that off. Not worry about it too much. Get her down kind of level and flat. All right, and we're just going to put 2 or 3 nails in each side. Yeah, and there is side 1. Do the same thing with the other side. All right, then we can just release our strap. All right, now just kind of decide which side looks prettier, and that'll be our front. The other side will be the back. And at this point, I also like to figure out which side I'm going to have be the up side, which doesn't always matter, but sometimes you see something that just looks better. Yeah. And what I like to do is once I figure out which side I like best and which way is going to be up, I will take my 1/4" bit and drill a hole dead center in my downside. Like that. That's where my perch is going to go. And I just like getting that indexed first. All right, so this extra piece of picket is going to be our back. You can cut this down a little bit if you want to. And I'm going to index up with our hole here. And that's basically going to go pretty much dead center. That's way long. I'm going to make that. All right, so I've been going about 13.5 on this. I'm going to rip this one down. And I like leaving the factory cut there. All right, so I got this ripped to about 13.5. I'm going to get this pretty much centered here. Should see about the same amount of space in there. And once you get her where you like her, glue it and tack it. And this is a good time to make sure that your index hole is where you want it to be. Now, the 6th piece. I'm going to flip it so that the 36-degree angles intersect with each other. Shove her on in there. And I'm going to draw underneath here. Good firm line on that side. I go this way. And a good firm line on this side. And the good thing is, once you've done this once, you get yourself a nice little template. I've got a few of them hanging out here, but I wanted to show you how I did it. All right, now I'm going to go cut this off on the bandsaw. You can do this on a jigsaw, but bandsaw is just so much easier. All right, so you got your template for your next bird feeder, and we got the two pieces that we need. Freshen up this glue a bit here. And we will slap these in the appropriate sides. Squeeze them in, square them up. Yeah, and tack them on in. Alrighty, so here's our finished back, which doesn't look too bad, and our almost finished front. So for hanging this, we're going to do a 3/4 inch hole. Alright, so I'm just using a 3/4 inch spade bit because it's what I have. I'm going to go about dead center here and just plow a hole in it. That's your hanging post. And now we're going to put in a piece of dowel. Yeah, I just cut the dowel on the bandsaw. Now this tape measure I got, it's what, a fast cap here, and it comes with a little pencil sharpener on the end. I thought that was kind of silly, but then I realized take a dowel, run it through the pencil sharpener a little bit, gives it a nice little bevel, goes in the hole a whole lot easier. And I'm just going to give it a quick sand here, get rid of some of this garbage. I do appreciate you watching, and if you want to see me try to make more stuff, let me know. Y'all have a great day.